Hello. Yeah,
Oh,
that's very loud. There we go.
oh wow.
Hello, everyone. And welcome to our session. We are going to be talking about SAP's AI strategy and taking a look at how we're going with a suite-first, AI-first approach. My name is Max McPhee. I'm a BTP solution advisor focusing on our AI and automation use cases, and I'm here today with my colleague, Rob.
Hello everyone, my name's Rob Seifert, and though I talk about AI a lot, my focus is more so on the cloud ERP and the application portion of it and how AI adds value, streamlines, and helps address some of the challenges and holes people have today in their current environments. Nice to meet you.
So let's go ahead and dive in. Before we can get started with the presentation, I am going to be talking about some things that are coming on the roadmap. And so with all future-looking statements, just want to state that those are subject to change. Just got to follow my German rules as a member of SAP. So we just got to show our disclaimer first. But let's go ahead and dive into what we're actually going to be talking about today. So we're going to be kicking it off talking around SAP's AI strategy. And for anyone that doesn't know who SAP is, we're going to dive a little bit into what we actually do and who we work with. We're then going to talk about who we're helping with our AI and really kind of why we're doing this and kind of the approach that we've been taking. Then, once we've kind of shown you why we should be doing this, we're going to talk about a little bit how we're doing it. So looking at our strategy for AI with having Joule, our digital assistant, embedded AI opportunities, and then how we can leverage the AI foundation within our business technology platform. So hopefully it will be a nice agenda for you to be able to learn about everything SAP is doing with AI today. Let's go ahead and jump in.
First, a little bit about us. I'm sure most of you probably are familiar with SAP. We've been around for over 50 years and started as an ERP and enterprise resource and planning company. And over the years, they've continued to expand. They now have human resource management. We have customer relationship management. We have spend management, travel and expense. And the idea behind it is that as we continue to grow and see the evolution within the market, we work very closely with the biggest and the smallest companies. You know, we have over 300 million cloud users, but we've been working with companies, 9 of the top 10 in the world are SAP customers. And the idea is that we have that level of experience over those 50 years working with customers of that size, and also over 80% of our customers are actually mid-market and small companies, and we've used that experience over the years to help establish best practices, recommended approaches, because for a lot of those back-end processes in finance, accounting, procurement, customer service, they're not really making you tons of money or saving you tons of money in most cases. So why not look at standardizing those? And as we continue to evolve, we have cloud ERP offerings that will allow you to leverage these standard capabilities based on the experience we have with some flexibility to extend those capabilities. And that's where it ties in very well from an AI experience. And right now we have 200 plus AI use cases. By the end of the year, we plan to be at 400 plus. And the goal is to continue to evolve and not only looking at this from the back end, but also the front end.
Yeah, so when we look at, who is SAP really trying to focus on, one of the big pushes with this suite-first approach is, being able to actually address the needs of all of the different individuals within the organization, but focusing on the goals that we see across the leadership. This is actually something that I got a quiz on. I am now certified in letting you know what the different C-level executives need from SAP, but really this is just a part of our kind of suite-first strategy where we have different products to be able to address the needs of each of these C-level executives, and we're really looking to be able to have AI that's working across the entire enterprise so that when the person within the procurement team is able to help improve their processes around maybe ordering new equipment, that then also benefits the HR side by increasing the speed of onboarding, by having that process go smoother as well. And so we're really looking to be able to address these needs across the business. And I have the fun job within the BTP area, or the business technology platform, of being able to work primarily with the IT organization. But recently, with this push to have more AI, I'm now having conversations beyond the IT organization. I'm now working with the finance teams, I'm working with the procurement teams and with HR teams, and being able to find how can we leverage the custom extensions that we've been using from BTP for finance processes into the wider entire enterprise. really has been exciting to see a lot more demand on the procurement space around being able to do automated supplier onboarding and really being able to accelerate that process. Because it's something that with our customers that are especially on the larger enterprise side, it can take months to onboard a new supplier by going through all of the requirements and checks. And that's an area that is really collecting a lot of information and being able to take that all in and then make the decision. And that's a great area to be able to apply a large language model to be able to review that broad information to help make the decision on whether or not to add in that new supplier. It's really, I think, a big change for SAP where in the past we've had a lot of silos where you can have the application that's for HR, and then there's a whole pattern of how you can extend that using custom tools just for that HR platform. But now we're looking to have more of a standardization so that you can use just a single platform with BTP to make the customization across the SAP suite. We're really being, I think it's making a big push for that, and it's going to be powerful to have the advantage of, once you see the benefit of connecting 2 or 3 of these different pillars, it then gives you an exponential benefit of being able to have processes that go across the end-to-end. I think one of the problems that I see a lot, I primarily focus on process automation, is looking at automating just a single core process rather than looking at the end-to-end. If you end up just automating a single part of the process, you really don't get the full maximum value, but you go through a lot of the effort in being able to do that transformation. You have the change management, and so I think it's really important that SAP is pushing this strategy of, look at this across the entire enterprise rather than focusing on your specific area. And I think AI is going to be the way to help bridge that gap because it helps us to accelerate the development of those customizations, which we'll see a little bit later when we talk about AI Foundation.
Well, even on top of that also, back to your point, being able to talk to the business directly, and depending on your size, a lot of times when you start with the IT organization, you're not getting that full picture of what the business really needs. So having that strategic partnership within the customer as well, IT and business together, is where I found us to be the most successful, because then they're forced to talk to each other and understand the priorities. IT sometimes wants to build everything, but then later on they're frustrated because they've built everything and now they can't maintain it or implement something new because they're spending so much time maintaining what they've built in the past. So one of our strategies also is not only here's a level of flexibility you have, but let's be strategic with it. Don't necessarily make changes that aren't going to save you lots of money or make you lots of money. If it's not something strategic, let's have that partnership between IT and the business to not worry about that. Let the standard capabilities within the function work, and then you have more time with those limited resources to really engage in AI, the new fun, things that we're looking at and we're exploring. But you need resources to do that, and if they're spending too much time maintaining the status quo, you're not going to have the time to grow like that, and then your competitors will.
And so one of the things that we have an advantage with at SAP is we have a lot of customers to be able to work on AI with. And one of the nice things is that SAP is not necessarily new to this. We've been doing AI since 1995, if we really look at what AI is and kind of focusing on more of the machine learning side of things. And so we're really able to start leveraging this to understand, with previous tools, which may have required more training and supervised learning, how do we take advantage of the benefits that we saw there, but being able to apply it to a wider range of customers now that we have generative AI and can leverage unsupervised learning methods. And I think one of the cool things is that we've got some interesting use cases to talk about, including a really great one from Gibson.
Yeah, so Gibson brands, they make the guitars. One of the things that they wanted to do was find a way to personalize engagement with their fans. And they have fans at all ends of the spectrum. They have the casual beginner fan, and they have professional musicians. So what they did was they partnered with SAP and looked at, from a very business-specific perspective, let's look at our data. Let's understand what our fans are doing, where they interact, and what they want. And by doing so, they curated their interaction to tailor their messaging with their fans, and then they were very specific with what recommendations they gave the fan based on where they may have been in their defined journey. And what they found was there was an immediate increase in the loyalty from those fans, and they saw over a 50% increase in revenue in some of their email campaigns with customers just because they were personalizing that message to them. And that's one of the key things. I mean, we're all users in the end. I don't like getting ads that don't make sense to me. I don't like seeing things that aren't related to me. It's a waste of my time and I flip past them. But the minute you can tie into something that's important to me, I'll look at it a little bit further. We need to be doing that throughout with everybody so that they enjoy the experience they have with us. Now take on top of that, well, maybe they have some experiences they purchased from us. How much are they using it? How much are they not? What can you do to increase their usage of it? All of this comes down to data. All of it comes down to understanding your customer base, what they want to do, what existing people are doing, why they're leaving, why they're extending. The more that you can leverage capabilities as quickly as possible to help adjust to what that customer needs, the further you go with renewing people from a subscription base, and the further you go with word of mouth, and then that's increasing your revenue in the long run.
Yeah. And I think, as I mentioned, we've been doing this for a long time. And one of the best things is that a lot of our use cases are not that sexy to talk about. They're pretty boring. Because a lot of it is just being able to progress how we're able to address our different processes. And so one process that is pretty boring is damage claims. But it gets a little bit more exciting if it's for a beer company. So last year we worked with Modelo and we're able to help them with a damage claims process for their beer's production. They are the #1 producer of beer in the US. They ship 400 million cases of beer, primarily in glass bottles, to the US every single year. And they sometimes break glass bottles. And before we were able to help them, they were looking at a variety of different screens. They had 3 different systems to be able to do the damage claim. They needed to be able to validate that they met the claim terms, then they needed to look at the images with the claim and decide whether or not to approve it. And we saw an opportunity there to apply some boring workflow. And we were able to bring in a solution from our business technology platform to help build a process around this so that the main goal was give that end user just a single screen. You know, why should they have to go into multiple different systems to do one process? And we were able to implement that, but then we saw another opportunity. Originally, we were going to use old AI, more of a traditional approach of machine learning, where we were going to use that workflow and the manual intervention to start building out a library, where we'd have a collection of, yes, this is damage, no, that is not damage, yes, that's a restack, no, that is not a restack. But we saw an opportunity to work with Google Cloud as a partner, and we're able to bring in Google Gemini. And with that, they were able to have an additional level of review powered by AI that then was able to increase that experience even more. So now that individual who was going through and checking all of those claims now had a recommendation, an intelligent approval recommendation given to them by that generative AI model. So it was able to review the images and then give them a suggestion. Based off of these 15 images, they've met all of the terms, and I can confirm that there's beer spilled all over the picture. That would be a good one to accept the claim for. And so we were able to take this even a step further and increase that value. And so now that end user is able to help them, and Modelo is owned by a larger brand called Constellation Brands. They're now able to have that person who used to spend his day every single day, as they would deal with thousands of claims every week. He was just doing claims. Now he's able to work with their other teams at Corona, at Prisoner Wine, and being able to help them with their damage claims process as well, and being able to reuse the components that they built for Modelo at other parts of the brand. And so I think it's a really cool area where, you know, it's kind of a boring process. It's just saying approve or deny on pictures of broken beer. But they were able to apply AI and were able to get even more value out of the process than they would have with the approaches that we would have taken a year ago.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really exciting to be able to kind of see these opportunities to apply AI into existing processes, or even extend ones that you may have applied process automation to in the past. I used to be an RPA developer, and now I'm watching everything that I learned kind of be replaced by agentic process automation. And so I think it's going to be really exciting to see how SAP will actually address that change.
Well, and even another example would be Team Liquid. They're in esports. They partnered with SAP to revolutionize their esports strategy. And one of the things they did was, by using SAP's business AI, big data, and the cloud, is that they go through 6 million plus matches with over 1.6 terabytes of data on a regular basis to look for trends in how they can improve their performance during key critical parts of gaming processes. And what they've done is they've been able to narrow this down dramatically in the amount of time they do that review, and they use all of that data to give them key insights, to provide them a competitive edge, just to improve their performance in these gaming competitions. It's just crazy to think, 6 million matches, over 1.6 terabytes of data, being able to go through all of that information that quickly, to look for tells within your competition, to increase your ability to win. I mean, stuff like that is so cool and interesting. I mean, I'm kind of a geek. I love games. So just the idea that I could get an advantage that quickly and understand it when I'm competing with other people, it's amazing to think of the opportunities that we have that, yes, some of it's boring, it's the back end stuff, but some of it's just amazing to think how it's going to end up making more money for you.
I think that's a really cool example because it's perfect for this, being able to apply AI anywhere, where in that case, they're applying it to reviewing them playing League of Legends and other video games. And it's really cool to be able to see how this technology is flexible. And I think that that's an area that we're seeing more and more with the ability to have generative AI within the platform and across the entire suite. And so, we've kind of got these 6 main areas that SAP works in. We really try and be a leader in each one of these spaces. And I think it's really impressive to see the amount of growth that we're having by being able to leverage more and more embedded capabilities. And I think one of the most exciting ones is being able to have access to our digital assistant, Joule, everywhere. And so this is going to be, like I said, talking about SAP strategy. And I have to check it myself because it's obviously a little bit of a complex strategy because it's a lot of products. We're working across the entire enterprise. And I think, as you can kind of see from the top, the main strategy is Joule. That's going to be our digital assistant that is persistent across the entire enterprise. You go into the procurement tool, you talk to Joule, they will know the exact same context as if you went in and talked to it within the HR platform SuccessFactors. With that, we then have to live on top of data. And that's one of the areas that I think SAP has a really nice opportunity is with our business data cloud, which is kind of that core piece of actually being able to feed these AI models.
Especially, well, I mean, AI exploded, November, December 2022, when ChatGPT came out. Everyone was excited about it, and everyone's still excited about AI. The challenge with AI is your results are only as good as your data. So one of the things that's important is our focus across enterprise solutions. So again, we're not trying to be general AI experts. We focus on business. We've been in business for 50 years working on ERPs. We now have human capital, you have travel, you have expense, you have CRMs. The idea is, well, if you have clean data within these systems, and then you can centralize that data, and you can understand the context of that data, now you can tie in other third-party data that may add value to you. Now put AI on top of that. The value that you're going to get out of that is exponentially better. Because if you don't have clean processes, you don't have governance, you don't understand your data, and in some cases your data architecture is all over the place and you're spending more time cleaning it up and connecting it, you're losing out on your ability to leverage that data to make better decisions quickly. And one of the other cool things, I love the idea of Joule. Like, yes, SAP's gone out and they've extended their portfolio. So some of these companies used to be separate from ours. And one thing when I used to be a customer and a user of SAP and another CRM and other tools, a frustrating thing for me was, wait, I have to go out of my tool somewhere else just to do this thing 1 or 2 times a day or 1 or 2 times a week. It was a very frustrating experience for a user and for me. And then on top of it, having to know all these different screens and what these acronyms mean and what these processes are. The exciting thing about Joule is being able to get to the point where you can speak in plain English, and then once you ask your question, the system will, 1, look at your security to make sure you're not getting what you shouldn't, but then it hops to the different solutions, it gathers the information you want and brings it back for you. Some of the examples we've had is, you're looking to open a new store, let's say in Switzerland. Well, you want to see where are the areas where people are spending the most money on this type of product. And then on top of that, you're like, okay, now let's compare what the average salary is for these people. Oh, wow, you know what? It looks like maybe Geneva may be a good place for us. And then you can go in plain English. I'd like to open a new rec, use some of the existing recs from this store to create a new rec for me. I want to open a position. They put everything together. You look at it. You make the changes. You're like, okay, now let's get this approved. That's all you say. Within that, let's send it for approval. The system knows how to go through, get it to the right people, get it approved, and now you have a job description that's already approved and posted. You didn't have to go to your business objects or your business reporting system. You didn't have to go to the internet to try and pull the data you needed on knowing what the average salary was. You didn't have to go to your HR system to manually find what other people have on their job recs. All of that was done by you typing in plain English what you want. And I'm pretty sure at least some of you in here that are working with C-level people, they're some of the most impatient people you'll probably ever work with, and they rarely go into systems, so they're even more impatient when they're forced to go into a system occasionally and figure out how to do something. Imagine them being able to go in and just say, hey, I'd like to look at this. Show me the variances in this, or summarize that in plain English. Look at your learning curve. Look at the excitement you're going to get versus the frustration that you're dealing with now. It's really exciting to think of all of this. And again, I can't stand inefficiency. I don't like fingers on keyboard that don't add any value to the process. And the idea that we now have the data and the technology to support that is just incredible to me.
Yeah, and I think it also then is amazing on the customization side, which is going to be the side I kind of lean on. I'm from SAP's kind of extension part of the business and the business technology platform. And so I look at it as an awesome opportunity to start building custom solutions, but having easy access to the data from Business Data Cloud, and then having the semantic information of being able to relate it back across the entire enterprise and being able to have the data connect between the different silos, which is something that would have been more difficult in the past without having that unified semantic model. And it's also really exciting to be partnering with Databricks as part of this. And so we've recently released a product with them called SAP Databricks, which allows you to be able to take advantage of that data that's stored within the Business Data Cloud, but using the strong capabilities from our partners at Databricks.
Yeah, machine learning and different AI capabilities. That's funny. We kind of balance each other out. I'm as much, like customization, but I'm as much standard as possible unless it really makes sense. And then once it makes sense, pass it on over because we can have the tools to be able to support you on both ends.
Yeah, because I think there's some great opportunities to be able to expand, and on the customization side, we can leverage a lot of our great partners within the ecosystem. And so this is, I think, one of the really exciting areas. Earlier at our booth, we kept having questions, what model is SAP using? The fun answer is we're kind of using them all. We've actually worked with a lot of the different vendors in the AI ecosystem to be able to build these partnerships to have a single AI foundation that you can use across the enterprise. And so with this, I'm able to go in and I can use our AI Launchpad, and I can build out a custom process that is going to pull one of these large language models. And then let's say a new version of Claude comes out and I want to be able to start using that and switch away from Gemini. I can just switch a field within a drop-down box, and I start using that new model. And so it allows me to have an amazing amount of flexibility to keep using the most accurate model for my use case. I think that is a really powerful part of our partnership, and one of the nice things is that we've done some things to help protect you, and is, I think, a really good opportunity for businesses of all sizes, because if you want to be able to start leveraging large language models, but you don't know which provider to go with, you can work with SAP and have access to all of them, but doing it in a way where you also have the big guy fighting for you, where SAP has negotiated contracts so that none of your information that is used within these models is used for training. And then you have additional safety nets like data filtering and data masking, so that if you want to be able to expose a large language model to your end users, but you're worried they might put a banking ID or like one of the first projects I worked on was being able to add new business partners, because you might get all this unstructured information where they're sending their banking information and maybe a new address. And it's a great case for using generative AI to be able to extract the information from that unstructured data, but you probably don't want to send somebody's routing number to a large language model. And so that's a great way to be able to use that data masking to be able to help hide that information before sending it to a model. Because even though they won't be using it for training, we also want to keep that kind of information out from the logs that we're keeping of those transactions.
And even, to expand a little bit on the flexibility, we, in some of the discussions I've had with customers, they're like, you know what, our data is so secure and proprietary that I don't want to use any of your models. Can I bring in my own? And the answer is yes. So at least in the last month, I've been in conversations with two bigger companies that have said, hey, I like the structure behind this, but I need flexibility on this end. Can you support it? And the answer is yes. The idea is we can meet you where you are. If you need help building out your ecosystem, we're there. If you already have some of your ecosystem in place, okay, what makes sense and how can we help complement each other as you're moving forward, and do so in a way that adds the value that you need as a business?
Now your favorite part.
Yes.
So like we mentioned, we do have Joule across the entire enterprise. So this is really kind of the core of the user experience that people are going to be having with AI at SAP, especially if you're an end user who's interacting with any of the different SAP systems. You're going to see Joule, and you're going to see it in a couple of different flavors. And so, like we said, it's across the enterprise. And so we can see examples here of some of the different chats that you might see. Looking on the recruitment side, being able to look at some of the employees and being able to pull information where it's pulling their entire role card and information on them, and is doing that within the frame of the chat. And so it's able to kind of bring this user experience into a more conversational approach, which is how most people want to work already. Rather than having to, in that case, go and look up all 3 of the employees, you're able to say, show me the employees that report to me, and it's able to help provide that.
Yeah. And even from that end, take into account now, okay, what experience do they have? What certifications do they have? I'm a project manager. I need to source a project. Being able to go in, instead of having to go to these different screens and figure things out, hey, I'm looking to source a project. I need a resource that has this expertise and is in this geographic location. Boom, it comes back with, okay, here are some of the ones. Do you have other criteria? And letting it narrow down. Instead of having to go to a different area or several different screens, try to figure out how you're going to filter, if you can filter and the data and get it. I mean, it's the real world experience of, my gosh, it'd be nice. Like I can just talk to somebody and it understands what I want. And even just from the reporting side, and we know we have that up here, but just from the reporting side alone, not having to go to somebody that will ask you all these questions and then will on the back end define all of this data, put the table together, come back, give you a report, and you're like, oh, I forgot about this. Oh, now I need this much longer to do it. Just being able to bypass all of that and knowing on the back end your data is structured in a way to where it understands it. A few years ago, SAP invested in a technology that by default can read the data and generate those graphs for you, so you don't even have to do it anymore. Once it understands what you're asking for, it automatically puts it up, and then you can interact with the system. Oh, I want to filter by this now. I want to see it by this. Oh, I want to see it by this time frame instead. Being able to do that so much faster than what I had to deal with in the past. It was either I understood the data well enough and I had to build it, or I had to go to other people because they had data that I didn't have access to. Even though I was allowed to see it in the system, I wasn't allowed to see the data well enough to build on it. All these barriers just start to fall away as you allow the front end to understand your security, understand what you're asking, and then to answer your question in a way that makes sense for what you need.
Mm-hmm. I think the area that's been exciting for me is on the IT side of things with code generation. Obviously, this is an area that we've seen a lot of work from a lot of the different large language models or different ways of kind of vibe coding. But I think one of the exciting things is that within SAP BTP, we were taking an approach for a few years already on low-code development. We wanted to really be able to enable citizen developers or really just the people that are within the business to create their own process improvements. And I think low code was 80% of the way there. It really provided some great options where I saw awesome projects of having the business team build out a proof of concept and then working with either IT or consultants to be able to get that final mile. But now we're able to help bridge that gap even more. And so you can go in and within our process automation tool, if you want to add in a bunch of business rules to help determine whether or not to automatically approve something, you can describe it in a conversational format rather than needing to enter it into a decision table. And so it really allows the end user to have more power to control their process. It's to the point now where I have customers that are using our integration platform and they want to be able to use some of the more advanced capabilities there for running their ordering process. But then they're using the low-code components of SAP Build to have their business users be able to control those decisions. So it's being able to leverage the right tool and the right development platform for the right user. We also then support on the other side, on the more pro-code development, which is what you're seeing in the screenshot here, where it's showing an example of using Joule to generate CAP service, which is SAP's cloud application programming. One of the advantages is that with SAP, we do have some of our own custom languages like ABAP and like the CAP services. And we are then able to leverage the advantage of having a large database of those existing projects that we can then use to train a model to be the best coding assistant for those types of projects. So with our ABAP cloud, which is being able to create customizations around your ERP platform, you're able to leverage our knowledge around how to write ABAP code, and it allows you to see an increased efficiency in development. It's something that we actually had independent review done, and I think it was showing it was around a 50% increase in development speed over traditional ABAP development tools. And so it really is a great area to be able to, again, leverage the data that SAP has access to get the most value out of these AI implementations.
I mean, that makes sense. In my old life, I was a user, then I was a citizen developer before jumping over to the IT side. And the amount of time it would have saved me from scratch, developing my tables, developing my test criteria, designing my screen, all of those things without, I wish I would have been starting that now to be able to plainly describe what I want and to get about 80% of the way there and spend more of my time refining it than on some of these processes that are just mundane and not adding value. And then the idea that you can build automatic test scripts on top of it too. Things that I had to manually do myself, which were painful. Or trying to get other people that I worked with, please, can you test this a little bit? And again, the level of testing they do, a lot of times, it's not the most extensive. So being able to get something that can extend your testing to be more complex than what you'll usually get from users, they like to test the happy path. And then it goes live, and then they're unhappy that the non-happy path didn't work. So how can you remove some of those risks? Well, you can do so by relying on technology to help you do some of that better than people can, because they just don't enjoy doing it.
Yeah. And so now we'll switch away from Joule into more of the customization side of things. So this is going to be talking a little bit around our AI foundation, which is really powered by that ecosystem of partnerships that I showed earlier. And it gives you the option to build entirely custom use cases, extend core processes, and then being able to just improve the experience of actually running these processes as well. With that, we kind of start off with having a unified developer portal. So that's going to be our AI launchpad, where you're able to have access to that collection of large language models. It's a part of our generative AI hub, where you can go through and you can navigate the different models that are available. Internally at SAP, I've got access to this, and I'm using it where I'm able to have a chat that I can then just quickly change which large language model I'm using. And the nicest thing is that as new models become available, I can take what I was using in the past and just simply update it to that new model. One of the areas that, like I said with our disclaimer, we're going to talk a little bit about some roadmap items, but it's just because I'm so excited about what is coming. It's going to be ways to actually customize Joule. So we talked about how it's going to be embedded across the enterprise, but what if you wanted to do something outside of SAP? Are we going to allow that? Yes. Obviously, we understand that you have more than just SAP, and so that's where Joule Studio comes in, and being able to customize the capabilities of Joule. So launching at the end of this month will be the first capability of being able to customize skills for Joule. And so the example that we've created so far is, being able to do something simple. Create a ticket in ServiceNow. I don't want to have to go into their UI, so I want to do it in a conversational format, but Joule doesn't know how to do that. Well, you can use Joule Studio to teach it that skill, where it is then able to understand, similar to previous FAQ-based chatbots, it's able to identify the intent of your message and then identify that it should use that skill. It will then prompt you, in this case, to provide a title and a description for your ticket. But the cool thing is that you're using a generative AI chatbot. You can have it generate things for you even within this conversation. So you can give it just a title for your ticket and then have it generate the description for you and submit that ticket. And so it's able to have a conversational interface that lets you interact across the enterprise, even outside of SAP. And I think that that's going to be one of the really cool areas where it's kind of us providing the same tools that we're using. On one of the first screens, we were talking about the hundreds of Joule use cases. But I'm really excited mostly about the customization side on how you'll be able to take that even further and create kind of custom examples within Joule. Then moving beyond that, when we look into Q3, we're going to be delivering custom Joule agents, where you're able to pick from the generative AI hub which large language model you'd like to use, and you can then develop agents that have custom tools. You can have a variety of different tools. I've so far been trying out the ways of using document grounding or connecting to web-based tools, so I can provide a domain and it's then able to search across that domain. And so I've started using it to help me if I have questions against the help guide. Why should I go back and search within our documentation? It's got lots of pages, very thorough documentation. Instead, I exported it all as a PDF, used it as document grounding, and then I also provided it with a domain for our help page, and I can now just go and have conversational experiences where I'm asking Joule, how do I do this with this product? And so it's something that I'm sure SAP will probably add to the help guide in the future, but I wanted it now. And I was able to build it in 5 minutes using Joule Studio. And so I think it's a really cool area to be able to start creating your own custom use cases by learning what you see SAP delivering. I think it's really cool that we kind of deliver these tools to our customers as well. And this is also something that you don't necessarily have to be doing it against an SAP system. Like I said, you could have it connect to ServiceNow. And so it can be a really nice option if you're looking to explore agentic process automation or having your own custom agents with a pretty easy setup in BTP.
Well, what I like about it too is it goes away from, back in the 90s when I first started my career, everything was, oh, it's proprietary and it's siloed. Well, if you want to do this, well, figure it out on your own. The idea now is, the reality is very few people use one company for their whole stack. It's unrealistic to expect. Now, you do have, best in suite and you have best of breed. Well, we know that most people are some combination of that. So being able to at least streamline your interfacing where you're engaging with some of those, or in my old life, if I had someone that you're spending 80% of your time in one tool, what can I do to bring your engagements and those other tools into my system in an easy way? Because I don't want to create that confusion for you any more than I do for me. And it allows adoption to be faster, increased, and really the satisfaction of your employees is greatly increased as well, because they don't have to know these 50 different tools that they have to go into to do things once in a great while.
Yeah. And I did promise boring, so I'd like to talk about document processing. This is a really exciting area, actually. 5 years ago, before I was at SAP, I was doing RPA for invoice processing, and I was the one who took our project from the consultants delivering the top 10 suppliers to supporting the top 250 suppliers. So I trained 10 samples of invoices from every supplier. Every supplier had multiple variations, so I trained around 3,000 invoices, highlighting this is the dollar amount, this is the invoice number, this is the PO number. And within just 5 years, that requirement is now gone. So SAP's Document AI has a capability of being able to take a different approach. So rather than looking at every individual variation of invoice, look at it to the output. What are you actually looking to read from there? Well, you're looking to get the document number, the dollar amount, the date, and the information that you need to put into S4, into SAP. And so we're able to instead provide a schema of what you're expecting to get out of a document, and then use Document AI and use that as the extraction, so that rather than needing to train it on specific templates, we're able to do that extraction of unstructured documents with just having an expectation of what will be the extracted result. This is a really cool area because we had a customer that was using the traditional approach. They were using machine learning, they had training, they actually went to the step of having a full dashboard that showed them which supplier they needed to train next. So they had data-driven insights into how they could improve their machine learning model. They've thrown it all out, they replaced it with generative AI, and they went from 70% automation rate to 98% automation rate. They only have 2% of their invoices being manually processed, and those are ones that are non-PO or have errors. And this is huge. This is for an oil and gas customer called Suncor Energy. It's a public reference where they ended up using this. They're paying $200 to $250 million every single month with this process, and they used to have a team of 20 to do that. Now they have a team of just 3 people that are reviewing the exceptions. And so it was a dramatic increase just by taking a very similar approach, but being able to leverage generative AI and move from supervised learning to unsupervised learning. But it has the safety net of it's a 3-way invoice match where you know the information from the purchase order, you know the information from the purchase rec, and you can then match that against the invoice. And so I think it's a good example of a cool but boring use case of how we can see some change provided by the AI within SAP.
And the idea that you still have the control of what percentage threshold matters to me to force me to look at it and make a decision versus having the machine make the decision for you. So there's still that control in there, and that's one of the other things being built on a regular basis is the ability for customers to choose. When am I okay with it being automated, and when do I want a human engaged in it? Because that's a different answer for different companies. See, the company I used to work with before, very, very conservative. That percentage, 98% probably would have been okay. Anything else? Nope, we're going to look at it. And we would have had a lower percentage. But being able to meet you again where you are with what's important to you, and then to move forward as you build that confidence, I think is another way to build trust within these new changes.
Yeah. And I think it's just amazing to see kind of this paradigm shift of being able to apply the faster development techniques as well. So when we're looking at creating use cases like the Constellation Brands example, by leveraging generative AI development and low-code tools, they were able to build that in 6 weeks. And with that, they were able to start immediately seeing value, where I think in the past it would have taken a much longer development cycle to be able to get a similar value, but even then it wouldn't have had the additional value of that generative AI model. So I think it's really cool to be able to see the impact that it has on both the improvement for innovation, as well as being able to actually just improve the development timeline as well.
And being able to have the flexibility depending on your tool. So I focus in on Cloud ERP. Being able to have some of that automation automatically built into your solution for a lot of these common standard processes. Like, oh, I need to look at my different costs throughout the month. Summarize those for me. What are my variances in my P&L? Or something as simple as, can you just summarize the last month of transactions for this customer for me? Hey, I'm pretty sure anyone that's worked in an ERP or in any system, you're used to having to manually go in and figure that all out, because a lot of times the tools that you have today or the reports you have today don't summarize it in a way that's makes it easier for you to consume in plain English. And that's where AI is also exciting. Being able to go in and say, hey, I need to know how to do this, or I need to know where to go to get this. Being able to do all of that will dramatically speed up your time in the system, your understanding in the system, and your appreciation for the change. Whereas today, I think with everything historically being so set in an old way of how I train you, how I get you to understand it, you need to go to this screen, you need to put in this data, you need to do it this way, that's just not how people work. So being able to have more of that engagement back and forth and still get the end result creates a lot of relief for the people that are involved in these changes.
I think another interesting example is, because we talked about some of the AI foundation, but I also want to just talk about some more of the real cases, which is something that we've been doing at SAP, which is using generative AI within our actual planning of goals. And I think this is a good example of one of the ways where you can end up adding in an AI assistant without disrupting the existing user experience. A big problem that we'll run into is change management. People are hesitant to change. With SAP being 50 years old, we have customers that will request that we have classic themes that make it look like Windows Vista, even though it's an entirely cloud-based solution. It's a choice. But I think one of the cool things is with SAP's implementation of generative AI for goal planning, I was able to go in and I actually wrote all my goals out. And then I just saw there's a little Joule icon. I click on that button, and then it gave me recommendations on how to embellish what I was writing, and actually being able to have, what was it, the SMART?
Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based.
And so I put in, I want to be able to talk more about AI. And I said that I want to be able to learn more about what SAP is doing around AI. And then one of the goals it recommended was go and speak at events and be able to get experience and network with other people at these AI events. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. And I'm here because of AI.
I like that too, because one thing that I love about AI is I found in my career, people are better editors than authors. When you have something in front of you, it's easier to know what you like and what you don't like. So being able to throw out an idea in whatever AI tool you're using and getting feedback has dramatically improved my ability to summarize information I want to share, to help me figure out what I want to share. I have my future son, my future son-in-law. He's trying to apply to a law school right now. And he's like, well, here was my score on my LSAT. I'm not sure how to talk about it. I said, okay, well, let's go in. And I said, okay, talk about where you're from, your grade point average, your experience, all of this, and say, okay, do I need to talk up or down? What are some ideas how to do this? And boom, it automatically came back with some great ideas that would have taken us a long time to do. Now imagine that in the business context of, well, I need to figure this out, or I want to do that, or what are some markets I'm not even thinking about right now? And having that feedback come to you in minutes instead of days or weeks or months it's just so exciting to think about. And I know we're all using it in our everyday lives. I mean, I just got called a robot the other day by my wife just because she asked me a question and I used ChatGPT to get the answer. And I'm like, ooh, I like what it came back with. So it's really exciting. And bringing that into the business world is even more exciting, so that you can have people that are spending their times today not adding value, keying in things, spending more time adding value. This makes sense, it doesn't. Let's build stronger business relationships. Let's have those people look for new ways to make money by opening different markets. There's too much value in the resources we have in front of us that's being wasted because of these manual processes that just don't make sense. And some of it streamlined, some of it AI. Find that combination that makes sense for you and just start somewhere.
And a great place to start would be sap.com/AI. Pretty simple, great way to be able to learn about everything we're doing around AI. It's really a good launch point. Also, feel free to contact either one of us. I'm on the customization side. Rob is on more of the ERP side.
Yes.
But we'll both be happy to help discuss how you can leverage SAP to improve your processes, make lives better.
Yes. Thank you. I guess we could say, any questions? Sure.
Yeah, so you've talked a lot about the impact to the business. Big pain point is obviously the configuration of the system and Aspire and all of your processes, role to position mapping, T codes, all of that stuff. How are you applying AI to accelerate that process to reduce the time to deliver benefits?
So the fact that you said T codes tells me you have historical experience with SAP.
I have a lot of experience with SAP, but it could be Fiori apps or whatever you want it is, whatever you want to say. But the point is speed to market. You've got this process, you've got all these steps. What are you doing to reduce the cycle time to that, and how are you applying AI to go faster?
So right now, there are two different ways we look at it. One, from the cloud ERP we have in place, we've taken the experience that we've gained over the 50 years working with these different companies. We've developed what we call as best practices, fit to standard. I'm not a big fan of best practices because my old COO used to yell every time someone said that to him. But it's basically, here are the processes that most people throughout the world are using for a lot of these back-end processes that are not strategic. A lot of your accounting, your finance, your procurement, your inventory management, there's a very consistent way that you can do that, and we have those processes predefined. And what we do is we sit down and say, okay, here's the predefined process. Why won't this work? So instead of starting with a blank sheet of paper and figuring out what you want and then going to configure it, we already have that process in place. The reality with that, though, is I've yet to find anybody that goes 100% with that process. And it's understood. We get 80 to maybe 90% of the way there. Then we look at, okay, can that gap be filled by several things? One, is it really critical? That's the first thing, because sometimes people just think it is, but they can't really justify it in the end. Let's say, yes, it's a critical need. Okay, do we have an add-on that we could extend with to do this so you're not building something? Okay, the answer is no. Well, we have extensibility, and we have multiple ways of extending to be able to support that for you as well. And by doing so, we dramatically decrease the amount of time that it takes for you to go live. Now, some of the AI components of it, this kind of ties between other solutions that we have, and I don't really want to get into solution names, but we have the opportunity to read what we consider to be process optimization in a tool. We can actually look at, if your older ERP was an SAP ERP, we can look at what your old ERP was doing, and then we can say, based on that, here's how it would look in the new ERP, and we can automate selecting all of that criteria for you, and then we can tell you where the gaps are and how we would fill the gaps. One of the things that we're working on right now is being able to automate that through AI so that it actually does it all the way through the process, or kind of like what we were talking about earlier with Joule, where it gets you 80% of the way there. The end goal is for us to find ways to get you 80% of the way there with as little manipulation as possible. We're not there yet. And to your idea of T codes and stuff like that, that's where the Joule interface comes in as well. Being able to speak in plain English, I want to create an order instead of old SAP VA01. You remember it because you were forced to. It was like a training camp you had to go 2 years ago when I was in SAP, but now you don't have to worry about that. And now a lot of the front ends being more app-based and more web-based, some of that also makes it easier as well. Does that help answer some of your?
You talked about upcoming launch of a Joule Studios feature where you can customize agents. You can build basically customized agents. Will you have limitations on what agents can be created? Like, can I expect that I can just customize anything?
Yeah. So I mean, I think we have some controls so you can't go around export controls and things like that, but you're able to provide your kind of explanation of what the expertise is going to be, and then you can provide the different tools that it's going to use. So that would be like the document grounding or the access to web search, but you can also have it have access to being able to do a web service call, as well as having some options for bring your own tool. That's one of the areas that still is a little bit under development, so I haven't had access to it myself. But you really are pretty open to what you want to build. So like my example was a little bit SAP specific, but if you look at it, I was basically giving an agent access to training material so that it could then become an expert on it for me. I actually had it right, I used our GenAI kind of launchpad to use GPT-4o to write the expertise instructions for the agent that I then was using. So I was able to write the kind of, this is what you are an expert in type of training steps. I was able to have another large language model help me write that to be as efficient as possible. And so you do have pretty open-ended opportunity. I think that there will be advantages to applying it against SAP by easing the integration, but if you can connect to something with an API, you could be able to connect that as a tool as well. And then that also is kind of step one of then being able to reach more agentic process automation and moving towards single agent operations to multi-agent framework. And so that's going to be, I think, a really exciting area, but it's also a little bit of a risky area. With multi-agent frameworks, you have a huge risk of if you have 3 agents in a process with 5 thinking steps each, that's 125 calls out to the